All right. A little quiet in here today. Is it quiet? Yes. Yeah, kind of quiet. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for the Boys and Girls Club for hosting us here in San Francisco. And I really appreciate the opportunity to stand before you as the mayor of San Francisco to introduce something that I'm very proud of and something that is long overdue. So today, we're here with a number of elected officials, nonprofit providers, and parents because the city clearly needs a change when it comes to our young people. During COVID, we all know that kids suffered and schools that were closed led to learning loss and mental health challenges that sadly continues to this day. But we can't pretend that these problems didn't exist before COVID. The truth is we've needed a change for quite some time, and now we have an opportunity to learn from the past and create a new path forward. Currently, there are more than 10 agencies that make decisions for our kids. It is so frustrating and confusing for parents, for kids who have parents who may not even speak English and they're the translators for their parents. But the thing about these 10 agencies who have a genuine desire to want to serve our children, they don't necessarily have a coordinated vision. Despite the good intentions, city efforts aren't well coordinated and they are confusing for both families and others to access. And we have a school board that needs to refocus its energy towards its core mission of providing students and families with quality education and services. We are here because we desperately, desperately need to put our children first. There are a lot of incredible people standing here with me today who really care about kids. Supervisor Merrill-Gar couldn't make it, but she supports our efforts, and Supervisor Raphael Mandelman is here with us. Former President of the Board of Supervisors is with us, Norman Yee, who led the fight for early childhood education in this city. We also have board members like Jenny Lamb and former board members like Rachel Norton and Hydra Mendoza, who I think are still here, but I don't see where they are under the mask, as well as so many of our service provider partners who do the hard work every single day for our kids. And as someone who used to be one of those service providers, I know how challenging it can be to manage a building full of children. And it's fun, but it's, of course, challenging. And of course, we have our parents, some of whom you'll hear from today, but so many of them have been really advocating like never before for the last 2 years. Getting this charter amendment onto the ballot is going to take a lot of partners, and I'm really proud of all the people who are supportive of this and with us today, including our young people, who probably are tired of standing up, but those young legs should be able to keep you focused. I know we can put our kids first because as hard as COVID was on us, this city actually showed what we can do when we work together to deliver for our young people. In the summer of 2020, with our schools closed, we needed to support our kids, especially those living in public housing and congregate settings who had nowhere to go, nowhere to learn. That's when the city, under the leadership of Maria Sue, with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, that's when we created the Learning Hubs. The program that we created happened in a matter of weeks. So these hubs, they served thousands of young people with a safe place to learn, to be around other kids, to get access to food, and to feel normal during one of the most difficult times of our experiences. And what made the Community Learning Hubs successful was the clear vision and leadership from the city and the communication and partnership with the nonprofit agencies. People would often ask, why aren't we using the schools? And I had no good answer for that. And that's exactly why this ballot measure is needed. Children First has two main focuses. First, we will centralize all of the work the city does for kids. It seems like it should already be happening, but it's not. And it's one of the most frustrating things about being mayor, and that is dealing with bureaucracy and dealing with the confusion around which agency is responsible for what, and the expectation that nonprofits who are already working hard to serve our children have to fill out several different applications with several different requirements and duplicate their efforts in terms of their paperwork. And specifically, the measure will combine existing youth service departments into a single children's agency for the city and county of San Francisco, which will be significant. It will create a unified vision, bring services and funding together in one place, improve efficiency by aligning all the spending that we make towards specific goals, and my favorite thing, reduce bureaucracy by giving parents one central location to access information and programs. So when parents are trying to figure out what their kids could be involved in the summer, instead of being waitlisted on the Park and Rec site, it's like, how do we make sure that we allow children access to things that they may be interested in doing? This holistic approach will better serve San Francisco's kids and help ensure that they have all the support they need. And like I said before, we have to get away from the system of 10 agencies serving families with no vision to where there's one agency leading or clarifying. I mean, it's just all over the place. So the next part of this charter amendment will be school board accountability. The other thing that is so critical to, I know, what everyone is most excited about is, the fact that we need to change what happens at the school board. I'm standing here with school board members, past and present, who've done difficult work. They know what it takes to make hard decisions and to focus on the core mission of that really important body. But unfortunately, the school board has not too often focused on the wrong things at the expense of the big picture. School renaming instead of getting our schools safely open, short-term political fights instead of closing massive budget deficits, parents who feel like they're not being heard, and kids are not being prioritized. And I know as a result of this, people have been frustrated and really lost faith. As mayor, I do not have control over the district, the school board district, but every year the city spends millions and millions of dollars to provide to the school district. And I'm not just talking about the emergency funds of about $25 million that we gave them during COVID, along with a number of other city resources through our various departments who collaborated them to provide support for the challenges that they were experiencing. My responsibility is to ensure that those city dollars and resources are being spent well. We need to set some basic accountability standards if we're going to keep sending that money. So Children First will do just that. It will require the Board of Education to self-certify every year that they've met some of these basic guidelines, including undergoing regular training to improve their effectiveness, conduct extensive parental engagement to ensure all parent voices are heard, recruit, hire, and evaluate the superintendent and general counsel only, and allow the superintendent to manage other staff, which unfortunately is not happening. Approve the annual budget and ensure that it aligns with the overall goals of the district, and conduct annual self-evaluations to ensure that they are working together as a collective body to achieve these long-term goals. Now, this is about good government and accountability. It's about ensuring that the city dollars are being spent wisely. It's about a reset of the Board of Education, and most of all, it's about our kids. No longer will this city give a blank check to the school board unless it demonstrates some level of improvement and accountability to serve our children. So we have a lot of work to do, not just to get this charter amendment on the ballot and pass, but to turn it into action. That's why I'm so grateful to have so many people here in support to show that this city cares about its kids and our families. And let me also just say, as a kid who grew up in San Francisco, and my grandmother wasn't the person who was completing all the paperwork and doing all the things that needed to be done to make sure that I was able to participate in all these programs like the Boys and Girls Club or the Rec and Park programs or the Department of Children, Youth and Families, Mayor's Youth Employment and Training Program. I was completing all those forms. I was completing all those forms working with my grandmother, and at the time, a lot of the people who were part of the nonprofits that helped me, they were the ones on the forefront helping me get through this process. So I can't imagine with how difficult things seem to be. We thought technology made it better. In fact, things have gotten way more complicated, and it should not be difficult for kids to participate in programs, for them to receive a good education and the support that they need and deserve so they can thrive, so their lives are made better. We owe it to them to think about their future. And part of that is making sure that we're grading ourselves, not just them, on math, science, and reading and writing. And right now, we're failing. We're failing our kids, we're failing our families. And so this charter amendment is about doing something different, doing something better, because I know we can do something better because they deserve it. And I want to take a moment to recognize the leaders of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Thank you, Maria Sue, for helping lead this charter amendment. Thank you to all the families and all the people who've provided their input. We are truly grateful, and as I mentioned to a number of folks here before from various nonprofits and agencies and parents, this has really been a collective effort and long overdue, and we're going to have to work hard to get this passed. But when we get it passed and when we implement it, we all are going to see and feel a change for our children and for their future. So thank you all so much for being here today, and at this time, I want to introduce the supervisor of this district that we're in, and who represents District 8, ladies and gentlemen, Supervisor Raphael Mandelman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome to District 8, everyone. If Norman Yee, London Breed, Maria Sue, and Phil Halpern agree on something related to kids, you know it's got to be good. And as another former San Francisco kid myself, I believe that this is a very good ballot measure. With regard to the provisions addressing the relationship between the school district and the city, I think this measure is a measured and reasonable response to some of the, frankly, chaos that we have seen coming out of the school district. And we have, as a city, a tremendous stake in what happens at the district. We don't run the district, but we fund it in significant measure, and this ballot measure recognizes that as a condition of that funding, we should have some expectations around the quality of governance. And so I really appreciate that that is an important piece of this charter amendment. But I also really appreciate the thoughtful approach to the delivery of services for children and their families, and the process that has gone on over many months. I have not been part of that process. I have checked in with folks along the way who have been part of it, and I have been so impressed to see people really digging in and thinking through what it would take to deliver for kids in the way that San Francisco should. And I think that's what you came up with. And plus I called Norman and asked him what he was doing, and he's here. I'm thrilled to be here. I want to thank Maria in particular for stepping up so phenomenally over these last 2 years. We saw in the pandemic, some folks really did step up, but not everybody did. Maria did. Many of the parent leaders out in the audience stepped up during the pandemic, and thank you. And the Boys and Girls Club stepped up during the pandemic. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Rob Connolly with the Boys and Girls Club.
Well, I'll be brief. I really just want to welcome you all to our clubhouse here in the Mission District, Columbia Park. This clubhouse has been here at this location for 113 years, and Boys and Girls Clubs of San Francisco has been in the city for 130 years. So doing this work alongside the city, alongside parents and families and communities for a long, long time at this point. I want to thank and welcome personally the mayor to Columbia Park. The mayor knows Boys and Girls Club quite well. Reminds me a lot that we used to just be a boys club when she was a kid. And then we got it right, and we got boys and girls, and we got it just in time. If I remember right, I think we got it somewhere around her teen years, so I think she was able to come to the club for a little bit before hitting the age of 18. I guess I just want to say, Mayor, thank you for prioritizing kids, families, and communities. It's no surprise to you. I've known you for a long time now. It's no surprise you get that right so often, and you got it right in the pandemic, and I really appreciate that. With that, I also want to acknowledge, Maria, you and your work, and I know you were working in partnership with the mayor and with the San Francisco Department of Public Health, but the Boys and Girls Club, when the mayor called for the shelter in place in March of 2020, we called up and said, hey, we don't think we can close, right? We're in some communities where closing is really going to be devastating for families and kids. And she said, well, I'm not sure about that. You guys are a little bit different. Rec and Park's going to be open. The library's going to be open. And I said, well, we really want to figure this out. And within a few hours, working with the mayor and with Dr. Colfax and whoever else there that I don't know, behind the scenes, figured out how to keep the Boys and Girls Club open. And we kept our doors open throughout the pandemic. Some of our sites in schools, of course, closed because schools closed. But our sites that we had controlled completely, like this clubhouse and several others, we were able to keep open, and we're grateful for the ability to do that. Across the city, we have 13 locations. 8 are like this, standalone, and 5 are in schools. As you've heard a lot today about alignment, so we receive funding from a number of different places in the city, and it is very challenging for us at every level, administratively, as well as sort of programmatically, including the challenges of constantly surveying our kids, constantly replying to different needs assessment that come out, and all the administrative processes of who's getting funded by this contract and that contract. And one of the things we jokingly say, we ask our kids a lot, like, what are your thoughts on this program? They're like, well, what program are you talking about at this point? Like, is it the program funded by, MOHCD? Is it the program funded by, I mean, of course, they're not asking that. They're just like, I think the program's the Boys and Girls Club and these great people around me. So we are thrilled to see this effort at alignment. We appreciate the city's courage, the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Yee, thank you for being here. Supervisor Mandelman, 2 of my colleagues, Katie Albright, Mario Paz, really appreciate having them here as well, and appreciate the leadership and the willingness to sort of dig in and find greater alignment for young people and families and for organizations like ours. And we look forward to moving forward as a nonprofit, working hand in hand with the city to sort of figure out the details on the other side of this successful effort, which we hope it is. So with that, I think, Mario, I'm going to introduce you. Mario Paz, my colleague who runs the runs the Good Samaritan organization here in the Mission. I will say that way back when, in 1922, we actually were in the same location. We had a Good Samaritan Boys and Girls Club, so maybe that's where my brain went. So Mario's been in his role leading that organization for 15 years. So Mario, welcome.
Thank you, Ron. I'd first like to thank the mayor and Maria Sue for your continued leadership on behalf of children, youth, and families. And I also want to acknowledge all of my fellow colleagues and service providers and other community-based organizations that are here today. You know, we do this work because we love our children, right? And it's our children. This is about our children. And San Francisco has proven to be one of the most generous cities in the world when it comes to supporting our children. And I think about the lessons learned in the last 24 months as we had this assault from COVID, right? And we continue to have. And one of the key things that we found out is, first of all, our most vulnerable are truly, truly our most vulnerable. And we learned how many of our children and families still, to this day, continue to struggle with many of the issues that have been brought forth. The other important issue we learned is that it really, really, really does take a village, right? And we are that village. And we talk a lot about that, but it really does take a village. But guess what? In order for that village to succeed, you need to be prepared, you need to be coordinated, and most important, you need to be accountable to each other. And I feel that this measure helps create that. It creates a village that's going to be well prepared, well coordinated, and most important, we're going to be accountable. We're going to be accountable to each other, and most important, we're going to be accountable to the children here. We can no longer fail children. I grew up in the city. I benefit from many of the programs here. You know, I'm a product of San Francisco. I'm a son of San Francisco, and I'm proud of it. But I can tell you now, we can no longer continue to fail our children. Every child deserves to succeed in this community. Every child deserves to succeed. We're a city that can do it. We've shown the world what we can do in so many other different, but why do we keep failing on this? And we can't do it anymore. And so we ask you to support this measure. We're going to work hard, and we're going to hold each other accountable, all of us. And thank you for being here to see me, and thank you all for your leadership. Thank you.
Who am I supposed to? Oh. Sorry.
要攞咗個口罩係嘛？嘿，大家好，我係肖英書。咁我係有兩個細路仔，咁個仔咧就係13歲，佢喺 Francisco Middle School， 依家係讀緊8年級。咁我個女咧就係6歲，佢依家喺張依科Elementary School 讀緊1年級。咁喺過去嗰幾年咧，咁我哋一直都係呼籲講改革同埋公共係問責制嘅，因為我哋一直都喺度努力緊，讓嗰啲教育嘅委員會聽到我哋即係家長嘅聲音。咁但係長期以嚟咧，嗰啲父母一直都係感覺到係被排斥喺嗰啲服務之外嘅。咁呢項措施咧，將會改變政府同埋各個部門啦，嚟校區啊個運作嘅方式。咁以便佢哋可以即係專注啲學生嘅需求同埋所有三藩市兒童嘅教育素質。咁喺呢個期間，喺疫情期間咧，個 CYC 咧就提供咗好安全嘅啲學習中心俾初中以上嘅學生去上課同輔導嘅。因為我記得嗰時係我個仔係讀緊7年級，咁佢都有參加呢個中心。咁仲期間咧，佢哋仲有舉辦嗰啲係線上個家長自強班。同埋咧，我哋家長都會經常都會收到 CYC 嗰啲員工發嚟嗰啲資源啦，例如關於係學習嘅，同埋咧有可以喺邊度接種疫苗，同埋喺邊度可以做個核酸測試，同埋有佢哋會喺啲節日會舉行嗰啲活動等等啦。而且咧 CYC 我仲知道係喺學校咧，佢哋會舉辦嗰啲學習嗰啲輔助班，同埋有嗰啲家長嗰啲班嘅。咁 CYC 咧每年咧都會喺中秋佳節同埋感恩節咧都會舉辦啲活動，提供啲場所俾我哋啲細路仔即係要玩遊戲啊、學畫畫啊，同埋派送啲禮物啦。咁然後咧三藩市聯合校區咧為我哋啲學生咧就提供咗嗰啲 combo 同埋嗰啲 hotspot， 即係喺屋企度可以上課嘅。咁因為 social distance 期間咧，其實校區係通過嗰啲 parent mail 或者 email 同埋 remind 咧係發啲標格嚟俾我哋家長啦，嚟有啲資源啦，或者學生平時上課嗰啲情況。我初記得嗰時咧，我個仔學校個老師係 Francisco 個老師，仲會發郵件會問我哋例如啲家長喺期間有冇乜嘢特別需要啊，生活上有冇困難啊咁樣。 因為當時比較好難，即係去買到嗰啲消毒液啦，同埋啲口罩。當時我哋向校區向老師發咗 email 要求咗之後咧，老師真係好好，仲會親自買到之後咧，都會寄過嚟俾我哋。咁喺嗰個 summer 嘅時候，我記得期間係放假嘅啦，已經係放咗假嘅老師，但係咧佢都會親自上門去送啲書啊、啲練習簿啊，同埋嗰啲文具會俾我啲細路仔去做咯。譬如講，依家已經係翻咗學啦，依家翻咗學校咧，校區咧係會有提供免費午餐俾每一個學生，同埋每一個課室咧，佢哋都會安裝咗嗰個係空氣淨化器，提供有啲消毒液啦，同埋嗰啲口罩俾每一個學生嘅，咁起碼都用到我哋家長好安心咁去翻工咯。唔該晒，多謝大家。Thank you.
Okay, I will be translating for Xiao Yinhun. Hello everyone, my name is Xiao Yinxu. I have 2 children. My son is 13 years old and attending his 8th grade in Francisco Middle School, and my daughter is 6 years old, attending her 1st grade at John Yi Ha Chin Elementary School. During the pandemic, CYC provided a community learning hub to support my children for distance learning through tutoring and workshops. I also participated in the Strengthening Family Program, the online parenting workshop for Chinese-speaking parents, and have learned many skills on how to be more effective parent during pandemic. I have received COVID information and community resources from CYC staff, such as where to get vaccination and where to get the COVID test. And our family also attended community events such as Mid-Autumn Festival, Halloween, and Thanksgiving, providing places for our children to have fun and not feel as isolated. I'm also thankful for the San Francisco Unified School District providing my children with Chromebooks and hotspot during their distant learning, where they can access to the internet and participate in the classes via Zoom. One of the most useful tools was the Parent View, where parents can access to our children's school report card, attendance, forms, and announcements. The SFUSD also provided free lunch to pick up to all children. In addition, there were also wellness check-in meetings with the parents conducted by the teachers. After my first wellness check-in meetings, we received a hand sanitizer from the teacher because we're not able to purchase them due to out of stock. During the holidays, the teacher personally delivered reading books and stationery sets to my children. I also felt the school is safe for return back in person if each classroom is equipped with air purifiers, sanitizers, and masks so that our parents can go to work with peace of mind. We hope the city and school district can continue their service even after the pandemic. This will provide the reform and public accountability that parents have been calling for over the last few years as we have struggled to be heard by the Board of Education. For too long, parents have felt left out of a process. This measure will change how they operate so they can stay focused on the needs of the students and the quality of the education of all San Francisco kids. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chanel, parent of 2 children at San Francisco Unified School District. Thank you, Mayor Bree, administration, for allowing me to speak my voice today. This Children First initiative is very important for the students because during the 18 months of distant learning for my son, he was in middle school at the time and he didn't experience his graduation. I felt the distant learning for 18 months was just way too long for him. To him, it felt like a teen, dog years. It was so disappointing, and now he's not all right. The kids are not all right yet. It impacted him a lot. He gave up after his younger 4th grade brother went back to 2 days hybrid in April. He dove more into the internet. It was devastating for him, and he needed an outlet to survive, so he picked social media, and now I'm seeing the consequences of that. He's so stuck now being a freshman, still in 10th grade. I'm a working mom, and my husband works. We didn't have 24 hours to watch him. I assumed he was doing his classes, but he wasn't. I think he was really into the internet. And now he's having a really hard time adjusting in person in high school. It all just broke my heart because our kids were not in school. I feel it was damaging to my kids' physical health and mental health. And I understood I understand the fact that the board wanted to rename schools, but it wasn't a time for it. We need to get our kids back in school as first priority. I hope that the resources from this initiative will really help my kids and our city kids. I'm optimistic that it will help our kids and that the school board will work more collaboratively with the city community. We're all overwhelmed. We're all in the same boat. I get it. And we need to have all hands on decks starting yesterday. My hope is that we'll do this together. Listen to we parents, listen to our teachers, principals, and do this as a San Francisco community. Our kids need our help and resources. I'm afraid about these budget cuts. Do we have enough mental health resources that they need after prolonged distant learning to be all right? I'm just a mama bear and just want this to be about our cubs and their schools. I have hope that we can do this right now. I'm a fan of a prevention. If we don't do this, take action, we're going to suppress our children's career potential. They need our help so that can make a difference being artists, doctors, lawyers, scientists, and many much more career opportunities in this city. The school board job is a big responsibility. If the school board had been operating as they should be, we wouldn't be here today. Early on, the school board didn't listen. They didn't take the help from experts. I hope that the San Francisco Unified School District member starts to keep an open mind, put politics aside, take advice from experienced consultants, and govern better for our kids. I believe this Children First initiative will help. It will move us forward, helping our San Francisco students be all right. To be clear, it's all about the children. Thanks again for being a service for our kids.
Thank you to our parents for their compelling stories and the reasons why we're here today. And at this time, I just really want someone who I've known for many, many years who worked very hard on the school board to put our children first. Although she is no longer a member of the school board, she still, of course, cares about our children and is always actively engaged in providing feedback or historical information or institutional knowledge to help us move things forward in a positive direction, and someone I'm sure if she were on the school board, some of the challenges that we were experiencing would not have been as problematic. Please welcome former school board member Rachel Norton.
Thank you, Mayor Breed, and good afternoon, everyone. It is really it's really a mixed bag that I'm here today. I'm sad that that here is where we are, but this is where we are. And I have to say that San Francisco is the envy of many other districts in California because of the incredible support that the city of San Francisco gives our district. In 2010, when the last economic downturn happened, I had just been on the board about 2 years, and I went to a California School Boards Association conference, and people were saying, "Oh, we're cutting PE, we're cutting art, we're cutting." Well, we didn't have to cut those things because of the support that the city gives the school district. And that's just one example. There are so many different ways that the city always steps up for the school district. And what happened during the pandemic, Maria, Mayor Breed, the services that were provided to public school children who needed them were really incredible and made the difference for a lot of families. I think normally, of course, a school board member would bridle when it comes to the idea of the mayor, who is not in charge of schools, telling school board members what they should and shouldn't do. But those are not the times that we are in. And somebody needs to step up and say, the governance is important, that the board has gotten somewhat distracted, in my opinion, in recent years, and has not focused on its core responsibility of hiring and evaluating the superintendent and general counsel for fiscal responsibility and community engagement. So those are the things that are now would be required under this charter amendment. They are common sense. They are things that the board should be doing anyway. I mean, every year the board adopts governance protocols and goals as part of its rules and procedures, and yet we have not always seen those governance rules or procedures be followed by the board. So I'm very grateful to you, Mayor Breed, for putting this forward. I gather, since Supervisor Mandelman is here, that he is co-sponsoring. Thank you. I'm also very happy to see my former colleague Norman Yee here, who, like me, spent many years in the trenches on the school board. And I think with all of us together, coming together to support these ideas and this charter amendment, this is an idea whose time has come and is important to continue moving the district forward. So thank you.
And I just want to add one more speaker just to say a few words, because our former president of the Board of Supervisors, Norman Yee, also served on the school board. And so I want to ask him to maybe say a few words before we open it up to questions.
You know, I've been working in children's services all my life, since 1969, and I don't know of any period where it's been so pathetic in terms of what I'm seeing, in particular at the school district. And I want to send the school district a message that if you don't step up in your leadership, then you're going to just, lose it. Their state's going to take it over, and they need to understand that. Just because the state takes it over doesn't mean that it's going to be better. It just means cutting without knowing our community. And thank you, Mayor Bree, for really introducing this charter amendment, because it's so needed at different levels. I know that I've been pushing for these type of issues, similar issues, for decades. The last time we reauthorized the Children's Fund, we put in a new element at the time, our Children, Our Family Council, which was supposed to do much of the things that you have in your charter amendment, but unfortunately, it just lacked a little more teeth that we need in it. And I think this charter amendment will do exactly that, where we start seeing a lot more coordination of children's services throughout all the different departments, and to work together, no more silos. And this is very similar to what we did with the early childhood education field, when we were able to move it into the Office of ECE, and there were other different departments or different organizations with funding, and causing the same type of issues that we're seeing right now with children's services in general, with all the different departments that are giving contracts out. We consolidated at least that piece of it. So I'm glad to be very supportive of this charter amendment, because I think this would move the city into the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I want to also thank CYC and Sarah Juan for being here with us today and for all her work and advocacy. Thank you to the SF Parent Coalition for rising up and doing what's necessary to not only support your children, but to support all children in San Francisco. And thank you to Katie Albright for being here with us today from Safe and Sound. We have a wide perspective of people who truly support and love kids in San Francisco. And I'm very passionate about supporting kids, because I was probably one of the most problematic kids there is when I was growing up. And again, had it not been for that support and those various places that I had to go as a kid, and those adults who were a part of those programs and my teachers and all of the things that I was exposed to, I just don't know where I'd be. But the fact is, there are a lot of people that I grew up that aren't where I am. And that's why this is important. Because the people that I grew up with ended up, unfortunately, in many instances, in the criminal justice system. They ended up dead, and they ended up on drugs. And I still see some of those people today in various places. And it breaks my heart that somewhere along the way, we failed them. So when you think about it, if we don't do this and more to protect our children, to support them, to uplift them, to make sure that we get rid of the barriers to their success, that's how we make the difference for them so that they don't end up in the same situations that so many people that I grew up ended up in. So that's why we're here today. We're here today because we need to change that structure, and we need to think differently about how we make things better for them. So I also want to just take an opportunity to really thank Phil Halpern for his extraordinary leadership over the years of supporting children, period. Thank you, Phil. He is one of the most committed San Franciscans to ensuring that we are doing right by children through our policies, through our funding and other resources. And so we really appreciate you and thank you for your work. And with that, I think I'll open it up to questions, Maggie. All right, questions? Yes.
The school board is voting tomorrow on budget cuts to try to prevent the kind of takeover that Tony you referred to. Do you have any thoughts on the direction you think that the school board should be going when it comes to those cuts? And how will this measure help kind of avoid this situation?
So I'll say two things about that, because there's the superintendent who's trying to govern and propose from my understanding, a reasonable financial plan to address some of the deficit that the school district has. And then there's a proposal by the two of the school board members. And this is part of the problem and why we are introducing this charter amendment, because the fact is, the one that's introduced by the board members, if that passes and that is the direction the school board goes into, then sadly the school district goes into phase 2 of a possible takeover. There's the last phase is phase 3, and then it's a done deal. The state takes over the schools. And so it's clear that if it goes to that point, then we're headed down that road. And to me, the fact that the school board members are still trying to move towards that direction, not to mention, this will disqualify us from allowing them to not pay the $25 million that they owe to the city and county of San Francisco above and beyond what we provide to them. They would have to also pay that money back to the city, because in the legislation to forgive that $25 million, put certain stipulations around financial requirements. And so they're headed down the wrong path with that particular plan, and what they need to do is let the superintendent govern the school board, which is what our charter amendment is set to do, so that we don't have school board members micromanaging what a superintendent is responsible for doing, especially in a situation where we are trying to get away from a state takeover. It's almost like they're doing this deliberately, and I think that's part of the problem. No more questions? Yes.
Do you see this as inflaming some tensions over how much control the city has, and how will we do all the proponents of this ballot measure bridge that divide as divisions between the way the school district and board should?
Well, the city doesn't have control over the school board, because if we did, we would probably not be in the situation that we're in now with our schools. Sadly, what has happened is When we opened these community learning hubs, the schools weren't being used. We wanted to use the schools. And unfortunately, there was a whole other issue and process with the school board giving us permission to do so. And as you can see, the learning hubs didn't happen in the schools. They happened at the Boys and Girls Club and at Rec and Park sites. And at sites we had control over, we set up a program in a matter of weeks, and we made it happen. And I think part of what we tried to do is, despite the challenges of working with the school district, we still did what they asked us to do when we could, because we had to support our kids. We didn't have a choice. It wasn't about you do what I say. It was, please let us help you. Please let us help you with testing. Please let us help you with vaccines. Please let us help you with PPE. It was consistently providing support. And whenever they asked, including the $25 million that was on loan to them above what we already provided to them in funding, we gave it to them because we had no choice. We needed to make sure that the school district was supported. So to imply that there's some level of control here, there isn't. There isn't a level of control that the city has over the schools. But we do, because San Francisco voters we love our schools, we love our children. There is a requirement that we provide financial resources to support the school district. And now what I'm saying, with that money that we're providing, we're attaching accountability to that. So it has nothing, from my perspective, to do with the takeover. We still have no control over what they do. And we also feel strongly that with those public dollars, there has to be an opportunity for the public, including parents, to have at least some say in what's happening with the school district. And the concern that we have the most is how the board members are micromanaging the schools, making decisions about whether or not a principal should work at a school based on political reasons, when in fact, the only person they should be responsible for is hiring and firing the superintendent and the lead legal counsel. But getting into different departments and agencies because someone didn't support someone for a campaign, that's crazy. And that's part of the problem. So this is not about anything other than fixing a broken governing structure.
Just one more question.
Mayor, can you speak to whether recent board behavior and lawsuits contributed to this, and if so, maybe give a little bit of detail as to which ones?
I must say that a lot of what contributed to this is something that I have wanted to do for some time, and then the pandemic hit. It was looking at a disorganized org chart around where funding comes from: early childhood education, First 5, DCYF, money for Tay Youth. All of these different things were all over the place and not coordinated. And then I was wondering, okay, well, we have these beacons. What's happening with the beacons? I mean, I know this structure like the back of my head, and there was a real disconnect between all of these agencies and all of this money and how our kids were not only doing in life, but how they were doing in school. And so there's no direct connection. So we had had conversations about structure from the city side for some time. And what really pushed it over the top with what we did to include what needed to happen from the school board had everything to do with, honestly, being treated like we're an ATM machine with unlimited money. And then when we would ask for it to be used for a specific purpose or what have you, there was no way to have any accountability attached to that. And, you know, there was money that I provided to the school district for specific purposes that I still don't necessarily have accounting for whether or not it was used for that purpose, including establishing wellness centers in every school in San Francisco, which was above the money that we give to the board because of the importance. And this is before the pandemic. And so I want some accountability for where those dollars are and why haven't those wellness centers even opened in the first place. So that's been the focus of wanting to just make sure that there's accountability and that we get more. We get more for our families and our children. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Let's get this on the ballot and get it passed. And let's keep fighting for our kids because that's what this is about. Thank you.